is Melissa. We're both CSPs. We speak with lots of you often, so that's great. And then we also have Eric, our community service manager, and then we also have Nicole from PSP here as well. And we're very excited to be offering you this workshop tonight.
Yeah. So yeah, like Marley said, I'm Melissa. I feel like I was reminds myself of the Simpsons episode where I'm like, you may remember me from your Miss Bulletin, your weekly calendar, because you're always seeing our faces at the bottom of it. But yeah, so when I'm not working, I like to decorate cookies, and we thought it would be a fun workshop idea with Christmas coming. So tonight we're going to do, I just have 4 cookies for us to try, and then obviously you'll have more that you can practice on. So yeah, so in your kit, you would have had your food gels. We've got our 3 here. And then you'll need a pair of scissors, just because if you haven't already, just to cut the tips on these. So I've cut mine already, but you can see there's just a little bit to cut off. And then sprinkles were optional. I did bring some, but you do not need them if you don't have them. So that is totally fine. I just had them to show you guys some fun, different ideas. This is meant to be really informal and fun. So if you have any questions or you can't see what I'm doing, please don't be shy to just be like, Melissa, stop, and or like interrupt and ask anything at all. It's totally fine. Ideally, we would all be sitting around the table laughing and joking while we do this, but virtual is the next best thing. Um, so our food coloring, you might notice it's the gel coloring instead of regular food coloring. When you're doing icing, it would take too much of regular food coloring to get the color you want, and it would end up completely thinning out your icing more than you can work with. So that is why you'll notice if you're buying food coloring, always look for the gel coloring. But yeah, we got these at Hobbycraft. You can get them from Amazon, any Tesco, pretty much anywhere we'll have food gel. And let's see here. So we're gonna start with our first bowl. We'll take 1 bowl, 1 spoon, and we will start with we're gonna make white icing. And if you don't already have a cup of water, I'll give you a second to have one. It doesn't have to be exactly 1 cup. You just need it to kind of pull from to dilute your icing. So we'll start with that, and we'll also get 1 bag. I'm going to show you, we're going to take our glass and we're going to put a bag in it. You don't have to do this, but it makes it a lot easier to pour in. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to be left with something like this. We'll set that aside. We're going to start with white. We're going to be using 2 bowls to mix all of our colors. We'll start with white and we'll just go kind of light to dark. So also let me know if I'm going too fast or if I'm forgetting to show you anything at all. So you don't need a ton. I'm just using about that much. And I'm going to do 1 more of those as well for the white. Yeah.
So Melissa, I'm going to ask a little question.
Yeah.
So on the icing, it says royal icing already, which we're using royal icing. Are there other types of icing you could use to be icing cookies, or
so
just royal icing?
You could use a buttercream. You won't be able to get like the fine details as much, but you definitely could, and buttercream is delicious. The other thing is, if you're bringing it to like a bake sale or a party or something, buttercream is not going to set like a royal icing will, so you won't be able to lay anything on top of it. But I do love buttercream. It is delicious. So I've just got like my 2 little, sorry, the lighting's kind of off. There we go. Yeah, just about 2 spoons. And so I'm going to start with my piping consistency first. So because I know it's going to be a little bit hard to see, you're aiming for a toothpaste kind of texture here. That's the consistency that you want. So I just have a tablespoon that I'm using, and I'm probably going to use, say, not even a quarter of it. I'm just going to use just literal drops. So I'm going to do that just kind of not over the laptop, but over my cookies. And then I'm just going to give that a stir. We don't need to add any food coloring yet because we're doing white. So I'll show you again once I mix it up, but you just want to kind of get it enough that you can stir it around. Let's see here. This icing is very thick, which is good. Better to be too thick and just add more water than have it too thin. So you can see here, I'm going to add a little bit more water, but we're almost there. So again, I'm just kind of adding drops at a time. That might even be too much, but that's okay.
I guess the nice part is if you add too much water, you could always add a little bit more of the royal icing.
Exactly. And so we're using a pre-made icing today because it was easier to mail out to you guys. If we had to make our icing and everything from scratch, we just wouldn't have time to do it all. So yeah, so I'll show you here. This is a good kind of consistency here. So you just kind of want it like toothpaste consistency. So we just need a very tiny amount of that because we're not doing a ton. We just want this for like piping details. So to put our little white on the gingerbread and that sort of thing. So what we'll do is I'll show you how much I'm taking. It's a very small amount. So I'm only taking about this much. Kind of a waste of a bag, but it is what it is when you're making cookies. So I might even just bring this up a little bit. So I'm going to stand up, I think, instead for now while we're mixing. And then once that's done, I'm just going to pull it down to the end and I'm going to tie a knot in my bag. And we won't be cutting the tips until it's time to go. Don't worry if you've got lots of air in the bag, you're going to be cutting the tip anyway, and you'll be able to move it down. Well, not this. Now, when you're doing two consistencies of the same color, it's nice to separate them. So I'll often do a double knot. So that's how I know that's my piping consistency. And then when I want my flooding consistency, which I'll show you next, then I would just do one knot. But you can also buy special little bag clips and things so that you can separate your bags. But if you don't have bag clips or you're just beginning, it's not necessary. You can just knot and double knot. So this is our piping consistency of the white, so we can set that aside. I've got two knots, so I know that it'll be different. And then the next thing I'm going to do is do the same thing with another bag. Put that in my cup. And then this icing that's left, you'll see it's just a little bit, it's not really running. If I want that to run, it's not really coming off the spoon. So I'm going to add a little bit more water to that. And then I will tip it again to see. You want to have about a 10-second count, they call it. So I'll show you what they mean by that. You're going to let it run off your spoon and kind of do like a ribbon, a line across. And then you want to have about 10 seconds before that dissolves into itself. Don't worry about trying to memorize everything. This week or next week, probably next week, I'd like to send out a little thing that's going to have some YouTube links of like people that you can watch to see. So you can see it's kind of, so I'm going to do a line. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up or not, but probably not, but let's see here. Yeah, and you want to have about 10 seconds before it disappears into itself. And yes, I will be sending out some more YouTube links that are really helpful to watch by other people. I'll have some followers to recommend if you're on Instagram. So there's some people that have really great videos about color theory and just really fun techniques because I was pretty much not entirely self-taught, but YouTube and those videos helped me a lot. So I'd like to compile a link for you guys so that if you enjoy this, then you can keep going and have fun with it. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do one knot just so I can keep it separate from my piping consistency.
And so Melissa, the piping consistency is for like the fine details and things like that. So it would be a bit thicker to like stand out.
Yeah, so that would be you would outline. That would be if you're doing some writing. If you're doing so for this Christmas tree, the little dots for the little baubles on it. Yeah, like the little fine details on things. So I'll show you that in a second.
Mhm.
So next up, we will do yellow. And again, if I'm jumping ahead too quickly, let me know, but I think I'm hopefully moving slow enough. Like Marley's watching for your comments and questions. So if you have anything, she'll pick it up and stop me. Okay, so we're gonna do the exact same thing, only we're going to add some yellow. So let's do again. I might do a little bit bigger spoon just because we're gonna be flooding with this one, the whole cookie. We don't need as much white. Again, kind of looks like a little scoop of vanilla ice cream there. So for your coloring, start small because you can always add more, but you can't take it back. Yes, there'll be 2 white bags of icing. So your first one was a little bit thicker. So we poured that one in, and then that is the one that's about toothpaste consistency. So this will be for your details. We won't be doing font and writing today, but we'll be doing little cookie details. And then this one is your second bag, and this one is your thinner icing. So this would be to like fill in and color in a base layer or color in a bigger part. We'll use this on our candy cane. All right, we're ready so I'm going to show you just how much yellow I'm using in a minute. I've just put about 2 little dots there, you can see. And then I'll add just a smidge of water, just because I know that right now that is too thick. It's not even going to move at all if I try to. So we'll add a little bit. And same thing, we're going to mix that up. So I do apologize, this is the boring part. I always joke that if I won the lottery, I would hire someone to bake my cookies and make my icing so that I could just do the fun part of decorating. But sadly, this is the most essential part, is learning your consistencies. So it's the main takeaway I want you to have, because you can always learn, you can always get your design inspiration looking online, but it's knowing how to make your icing that's gonna have you ready to go and be able to do it. So this turned into a nice yellow. I'm happy with that. If you want it to be darker, you can add a little bit more. And yeah, get it to where you want it. So again, we're looking at kind of toothpaste consistency. So I'm going to put just a little bit of that, probably, again, about like a spoonful there. And because this is my thicker piping, I'm going to knot it twice.
So yeah, just like the white, we'll have 2 bags of icing,
Yeah.
one thicker, one thinner. And if we wanted to not use a pre-made icing, for example, and be thinning it out, what would we use to make like just a basic icing?
So in Canada, I used meringue powder a lot, and I had a really easy recipe that I will include in the follow-up email. It was really easy. It was like 4 cups sugar to 3 tablespoons of meringue powder, and then water. So you were happy with it. Meringue powder is really expensive to find here in the UK. And there are other pre-made royal icings that you just add water, but I find they don't set completely. And so maybe it was just me that day, but when I did bring it to the bake sale, I found they were kind of crushed in between each other. So there's a recipe here that I use in the UK. As I'm telling you this, I'm just going to add some more water because I don't want toothpaste anymore. I want this to be thinner. So here in the UK, I have a recipe that uses egg white powder, which you can get at Tesco. And that's really easy. It's egg white powder, lemon juice, and water. And so that's kind of been my go-to since we moved here. So I will include that as well. Because yes, it is much cheaper and you get a lot more out of it. yeah, this is nice for something like this, but to do this all the time, you would be spending a ton. So again, let's see if I can get up close here. You kind of want about 10 seconds to, mine might even be a little bit too thin, but that's okay. Once you get used to it and you start getting used to the icing, it's not the end of the world if you go a little bit too thin because it just means you have to work faster. But if you're not at that stage yet, if it's a little bit too thin, you can just add more icing sugar if you were making your own from scratch, or you can take a little bit more out of your container and plop it in. That is the other benefit to making your own icing from scratch too, is it's so much easier to kind of fix any mistakes that come up because if it's too thick, you just add more water, and if it's too thin, you just add more sugar.
Yep, so we could have both a toothpaste consistency one and then also a thin one for flooding.
Yep.
And we want maybe a little bit more for the flooding because we're going to be doing a star. And so this whole cookie is yellow. So that's what we're going to use the flooding for the background.
Sorry, I just realized I've been like when you're trying to talk. Okay, so yeah, so just to kind of refresh, so we've got two pipings, a yellow and a white, and then we have two flooding, a yellow and a white. And so you can either put them on different sides of the table or just remember whatever kind of combination you want to use for how many knots, just to help yourself remember. So next up is, what color did I say next? We are going to do blue. I'm going to throw a curveball at you because you don't need to do flooding for this one. This is the only one. Everything else, we're going to have two of each. We're going to have two bags of every color except this one. So you can keep using the same bowl in case I haven't mentioned that. So I've mixed my white in here and I've mixed my yellow. I'm going to go ahead and mix my blue in here. And then I'm even going to make my green in here before I switch bowls. And just so that you don't have 80 bowls in your kitchen. So because we're only doing piping for the blue, we don't need as much. We're really just using it for dots, like on our Christmas tree and maybe eyes for the gingerbread man. We're not going to be needing a ton of it. So I'm just going to do 1 tablespoon or like 1 heaping tablespoon. And yeah, don't worry about there being yellow in the bowl because it's just gonna get blended in as long as you're going from light to dark. Again, just a teeny tiny amount of the blue. And a smidge of water. I should have done that a little bit that, but I'm just doing like boop. Again, so you can make more if you want more. I'm happy with that blue. I've just gone for like a kind of sky blue. You can't really tell underneath the. Yeah, well, it's my kitchen is so dark that it's better to have this than. Okay, so I'm happy with that. It's toothpaste consistency. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the bag now. And you can put all of this in the bag because you don't need any other texture. So you can empty the bowl for this one. Oh yeah, I have an apron. All right, so just one of the blue. So next up, again, tell me if I'm going too fast. I'm going to go on to the green. I'm just going to get my bag ready again. And then the green, because we are going to be filling in the Christmas tree, I will use a little bit more of that one.
I can definitely see how it would be helpful to have somebody else just pre-mix all of
It is,
icings.
as much as I love making cookies, it is when I'm doing a big order of them or a big set of them, it is a multi-day process
Yeah,
to get
I
your,
bet.
because it is all the phases of. So I've got about 2 scoops here. I might even add a little bit more of that actually. Okay, so 3 scoops. This stuff does really look like vanilla ice cream. It's so thick.
Yeah, it does.
So for the green, we're gonna go back to primary school. We're gonna do equal amounts of our blue and yellow. So you can start with, we'll say, I'm gonna do and then one bigger drop of the blue and one bigger drop of the yellow. And then I'm doing them right beside each other. You don't have to, but I just want to make sure they're kind of the same size so I know I'm doing equal amounts. It's not the end of the world if you have a little bit more yellow or a little bit more blue. You're just going to have like maybe a minty kind of green or just a little bit off. And you can always add more blue or add more yellow if you don't have the shade you want. So,
Marley, I just have a question.
Yeah.
Um, if you, or sorry, Melissa, Marley's on the
Yeah.
bottom, and I just saw the name and saw.
no, it's fine.
If you said you're making, if you do cookies, you do a multi-day process. Are you making your icing ahead of time, or the icing the day of?
So usually I'll do my cookies the first day, but the next day I'll do my icing, and then I'll either use it that evening, or I'll finish it. Usually it's after the kids go to bed, so I'll make it and then I'll start. But your icing is actually stable. Double check, but I believe it's up to 2 weeks. Mine has never needed to last that long, but it is stable at room temperature. So you can, if you know you're going to be busy or you just have extra time the day before, you can. And then the only thing is just make sure you mix your bag again because your color will kind of settle. So you just take it and kind of massage the bag and move it around. And some people will swing it, but I've heard horror stories of it opening. So I've never done that, but yeah, some people will. But yeah, you just have to massage it to move the color around again. But yeah, you can do it the night before if you need to. You can also freeze royal icing, which is very handy.
That is very handy.
Well, let's see if I've got my green, the color that I'm going to want.
Christmas tree green. What do you
see.
get?
I think mine is more definitely of a sage. I might need to put a smidge more blue in there. Mine's a bit yellowy, so I'm going to go ahead and add another blue. Just a smidge. I don't want to overdo it. And then I'll go and add just a smidge more water just so I can stir it a little bit easier. I made the loveliest green on my first try. And I'm going to hold this up as proof because this will never happen again now. Normally, and you can get every color, but we just obviously couldn't get every single color for everyone to mail out. So my tree is going to be a little bit of a minty green. I'm okay with that. I'm going to roll
It's
with
like a
it.
cedar. It's
Yeah.
a cedar tree.
But you play with your colors and get it how you like. It's up to you. There, what was I going to do? Oh, right there.
Okay.
So we don't need a ton of the green piping. Actually, when I looked back at what I did, the only green I used was for my buttons on my gingerbread. So we really don't need a lot of that. And to outline the tree. So I'm gonna do maybe, I think about this much, maybe just a little, again, another tablespoon.
And so this is the thicker toothpaste
Yeah.
consistency one for the piping.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a thinner one as well.
I'm gonna be off my game now with my coloring.
I like it. It's what is that Christmas tree type that it is more like kind of a like it's a bit of a dark, cool green as opposed
Yeah, like
to
a
like
thing, kind of like
green. Yeah, like just a green.
And the other thing too, to remember, don't panic if it's red is one that kind of will sometimes still look pink, but it will typically dry a little bit darker than what you've got. So they often say that as a warning too, if you're trying to get an exact shade, don't go right to it. Go almost the shade before it because it will dry darker.
Good to know.
So I've just added a bit more water in there. I'm just giving it a stir, and then I'm going to do my 10-second count and see how long it takes for a line to dissolve. So we'll go like this. And as you get going, you'll get comfortable just looking at it. You won't have to always be counting. You'll just know, yep, that's going to work, or no, I need to change that. And then the rest of it will go in. And that'll be bag number 2. We'll be done with the green. We're almost there, guys. Almost to the fun part, I promise. All right, so for keeping track safe, so we've got white, 2 bags, piping and flood. That's okay, take your time. I'll do a little recap anyway, so you can work on that. And then I think after the icing's mixed, I think we'll let everybody kind of get a drink of water, a bathroom break. So yeah, you've got lots of time to catch up. And yeah, it's also being recorded, so
Yeah.
stress. So your white piping and your flood. And then we've got yellow, 2 bags, piping and flood. And then green, 2 bags, piping and flood. And then lonely blue, piping.
And I'll type this all out in the chat as well, just in case you happen to miss it and want to take a quick look back.
Let's see. I was like, oh no, another question, but that's you. Okay. And then we're going to be switching bowls. So take your time, Camilla. I'm just going to put this over here for now. And then get another one ready. Okay, so next up, we have 2 more colors left. We are so close, guys. Next, we're going to do the red. So you'll notice your red is a different one than these ones. And that is because I am very picky with red because some brands, and I'm not going to name anybody because I don't want a lawsuit. Some brands will not get to a red without using a ton of icing. By the time you get to a red, it tastes awful. PME, I'm not sponsored, I wish. They are a good one. They will get to red. And you can find them at any specialty baking store. Amazon also has them. Lakeland, if you're ever by those ones, they have them. They are a good one. What's the other one? And something. the cookie cutter lady that you'll see. If you're ever on Amazon, you'll know her. After your first couple of cookie projects, you'll be familiar with her name. Hers also will get red. When you go back to Canada, there's Chef Master, AmeriColor. Those ones are good. I'm gonna have all this in an email for you, so don't worry about remembering it. But for now, PME is kind of my go-to for UK reds. So I don't need a ton of red. We're going to be doing candy cane with it and maybe a gingerbread mouse. So we don't need a ton of red. So let's see. We'll do. I was like, I don't know what that was.
Together.
Oh, good. I never thought to tell you of I told you guys to have spoons, but a butter knife. The only annoying thing about these is they come in pots, so you can't just squirt out how much you need. But yeah, so I've got about this much that I'm going to use for my red, and then I'm just going to use a butter knife to color that. I will probably red, unfortunately, even the good brands, you do just need a lot because it likes to be pink. So I'm kind of, you can't, I'm gonna go over my cookies, but not your laptop. You can kind of see like a little bit there, but
Looks almost about a quarter teaspoon almost.
yeah. And so I'm just gonna kind of gently rub my knife along the top so that the color comes off of it. Hopefully that does the trick. But if not, we can always add more. It's better to add a little bit, like I said, and have to add more than to go over the top. Not a big deal if you've got a ton of icing to work with and you can just add more, but if you're trying to ration out for, sometimes I'll do a palette that has like 10 different colors that I want, so then it's more important, but all right, so we'll get it. And so at first you'll think, oh my goodness, I've used way too much because it looks like a big bowl of jam. But once you actually stir, then it'll kind of lighten up a little bit. Often with the red, it's not as dark as you think it is. So there, that's turned into, mine is kind of a pinky red, but again, it's going to darken up. So right now you can see it's almost like a pink color, but then it does get quite dark when it's done. So I'm going to do a very small amount of the piping because again, I'm just doing a quick outline. I don't need a ton of it. We'll use a little tablespoon there, or a heaping tablespoon. You guys are learning pretty quick that when I say tablespoon, it's a very large heaping tablespoon.
It always turns.
Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah.
And, well, I made a birthday cake for my son recently, and I wanted to ice the whole thing in red, and then it did turn out pretty pink, and I had to add a lot of ice food coloring, and it still was pink. So. Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, so that's why I was like, when we get these from Hobbycraft, these ones will be great, but the red, I was very picky and said, we're getting a PME.
Yeah.
Red. I think Sugar Flare is the UK one. I think that is also, I'll double check the name. It's Sugar something. I think it's Sugar Flare. And they turn red. Had a lot of trial and error with my baking to the UK. But it's been good. I'll also put in the link. If you like doing this and you get going, there's a girl in Scotland who does custom cookie cutters now, and she does stenciling. So if you get into airbrushing and things, that's more advanced. But it's fun, and I'm going to be very sad to leave her behind when I move back. I'm sure I'm putting at least one of her children through college. So I'm just making my flooding now. So I'm just adding a bit more water, doing the same as the other colors. Yeah, I'm just kind of holding that up. You can see it kind of is falling a little bit fast, but yeah, and I'll find some YouTube links too, because I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see because we are not professionals,
Professional videographers.
but there are professionals out there who have good videos on like consistency and flooding. So I learned back in Ottawa because there's a cookier out there who was doing classes during COVID, and she was doing virtual. And she recorded some videos, and you just had to pick up on her doorstep your bags, and she had made the icing for you. But then after that, it was a great class, but I still didn't really know how to get to that consistency, and so that's where YouTube comes in. If you can't be here in person anyway, that's where YouTube comes in.
And that's a light model. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just hard with laptops anyway. It's all good. I've got so many fun video links to send everybody. They'd be overloaded by the time I'm done. Okay, so I'm gonna gear up for our last ones.
Brown.
Don't worry if you're not caught up yet. Like I said, after this, we're gonna kind of have time to go get a glass of water. And then if you haven't got caught up and we're starting back up again, and then you do want to go get your glass of water, we will obviously wait for you. So don't worry. So we're gonna do brown. So I'm gonna do this one. We're gonna be doing the gingerbread man, so we do need to fill it a little bit. So this one we'll use a bit more for that.
And we're using the same bowl as the red. right
Yes.
now? Yeah. Okay.
Because we are going to mix all of our colors. Now I lucked out and got again a perfect gingerbread shade. It's probably not going to happen now. I'm probably going to get purple or something ridiculous. But we're going to go with it because why not? Because we can.
Yeah.
These are our cookies and we can do whatever rainbow colors we want. So for this one, we are going to make a green. So we're going to do equal amounts of red or equal amounts of blue and yellow because we want to have a green and red kind of combo to make that brown. So I'm going to go. And then I'm going to actually put 2 things of yellow because I like my brown to have a bit of a warm undertone. I kind of like it to go that kind of like gingerbread warm and not like a grayish, like kind of dark brown. So I'll show you actually in a second. I'll just mix them all here. So I'm gonna go 2 yellow to 1 blue. There's my green. And then we'll get the red in here. Okay, and then we're gonna hold our breath. We do have more. I
do quite enjoy the suspense of this round.
For bet you didn't know you were getting the thriller.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see a little bit there. I've got 2 dots of the yellow, 1 of the blue, and then I've kind of smudged my red on there, and we are going to see what happens. I'm gonna add a little bit of water. So the recipe that I'll send you guys to do it from scratch, you'll get your color first because it will come out in a piping consistency already. So you'll get your color first and then you'll add your water just so that you don't accidentally thin it too much. Because sometimes we think we only will need 2 drops of color and then something like red or black that you use a lot more, and then the next thing you know, your icing's gotten too thin. So this is very much a trust the process. It looks awful when you get going, but it did earlier too, and it turned out so. So mine is looking a bit almost like a green undertones. I might add a little bit more red and a little bit more yellow to mine. Again, holding our breath. I'm not going to get too stressed about these because it's only going to be Marley eating them. So Marley and my own children, so
Yes.
they can deal if my color theory is off tonight.
Yes, Alicia, I'll just do that now. So we had a feeding. And so we've done now. So we've got 2 smears of red.
I've got 2 smears of red, 3 drops
3
of
yellow,
yellow,
1 blue.
and 1 blue. You can also buy brown food coloring, and if we had if we were able to get you more colors, I would have just gotten you the brown. So that you don't have to do this all the time. But in a pinch, at least this way here, you know you can do it if you don't have brown at home, and you go to do something and realize you've run out. So that looks a little bit better. I'm
Oh,
happy
that's
with that.
great. Yeah.
I think it kind of looks a little bit gray on camera, but it's all right. It's gonna do for tonight. No,
It does look good. It's a nice warm brown. Yeah, it looks nice.
yeah, so I
Chocolate.
find yeah, I find a lot of times when even the brown that is the brown food coloring will still almost look like a chalky, kind of a cool tone. And so that's why I like to add a little bit of yellow because it just brings out that kind of warm color to it. So I'm just gonna go. I don't need too much. I really only need enough to outline my gingerbread cookie. So yeah, so one tablespoon is fine. This is probably even too much. I don't need that much.
I actually think it's very nice to think about the color theory because you wouldn't otherwise think about it. So it's kind of nice.
So
in
when
this
I
setting.
first started, I bought all of my colors, and I still at home have like 4 shades of pink, and like, it's ridiculous. But there's an Instagram account that I follow. Her name is Killer Zebras, which is a weird one, I know. But she does amazing color theory videos on colors like champagne and lilac, and just those really like specialty colors that you can't just buy in a store. And they are really helpful. So this is our piping, so 2 knots to set it aside. And I prepped the last bag. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more water, thin this out a little bit. Bit more water. There we go. After this, we are done our icing. Woo! Finally. And now you know why I say if I ever won the lottery, that's what I'm investing in. So once you're done this, if you want to just take a bathroom break, get some water, or whatever, we don't you wanted to get a drink of water and come back, then we'll get started again. And if there's any questions in the meantime, I'm just going to kind of set up. I'll kind of get this stuff out of the way and get ready to start the fun part finally. Well, thank you guys for your patience in doing the boring part.
In the meantime, I can angle the camera down and kind of show you what we're working towards here. I know you've seen a couple of them so far, but this is what, ooh, This is what Melissa has whipped up earlier today. So this is kind of our goal. Now that we have all those lovely colors mixed up, this will be what we're kind of working towards. And what I think is always amazing, every time I make cookies, the icing stays wet, but these have set up really nicely. Like they're hard to the touch. I bet you could probably stack them at this point. Oh yeah, you can tap them. So that's what's really awesome about this. Every time I've made cookies like this, it never turns out that way. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, so yeah, we're all set for a few minutes here. And yeah, I have my outline all set up here. So star, tree, gingerbread. Okay. And let's all sit here and get my water as well. Okay. We do these and these. That's over here, so I don't accidentally spill it. So for this part, you will need your scribe, your little cookie tool. So I've got one here, and then scissors to cut the bag. And then I usually put either a damp cloth or I've got a couple of sheets of paper towel here. When you're working on your cookie, I usually use a flat surface just because I like my hand to be able to be on the table and not be working at like an angle or anything. Yeah, so you could use like a cutting board, or I'm going to use 2 pieces of paper towel just to have on that. I'm just going to put this in the sink while people are catching their breaths after making them work away. Right. Everybody good? Anybody still working away that needs a second? All right, so I'm going to get started, and then if there is anybody that's still working away or not back yet, just be like, stop, and I'll wait for you. So we're going to do our Christmas tree to start with. There's 2 different ways you can do this. So I will hold them both up. There's one way where you outline all of the outside and flood the whole thing at once. You can do sprinkles like I did on this one, or you can wait, let it dry, and do some dots on it with your piping so that you can do little baubles on it. The other way is, if you want to have a bit more texture, is you can divide up what you're doing. So I will show you how to do both. I'm going to start by outlining the whole thing, and then I'll tell you kind of what to do with that. So we're going to start with our green, and we're going to start with our piping at first. So that's your double knotted one if you were like me and chose to do the double knot for piping. The toothpaste one, yes. Your toothpaste bag, minty fresh. So I'm going to lean in to show you. Start small with your tip, because you can always go bigger, but you can't, once your tip is too big, then you're kind of stuck and you have to either pour it into a new bag or work really quickly. Coming in fast. Yeah. Some nights I just persevere, but it is best to do it properly. So I'm just going to show you. I'm probably just only going to knock off about like that much. So I'm going to go about like that, little teeny bit. Oh, first I'm going to box the bag and then and yes, so your scribe you have, and I'm going to bring this in so I would do this standing as well, but my hands will be too shaky to try and stand up for this. So I'm going to sit, but I will show you what I'm doing. So first, I'm just going to outline the whole thing. So because I've got my air here, I'm just going to push my frosting just gently up to the surface here so we don't overflow. And then, so you're just going to start on the outside. Now, all these cookie videos that you see on Instagram are sped up. And I hate to break it to you, but this is a little bit tedious. It is a lot slower than you're realizing. So you just start and you're basically just going to outline the whole thing. If you go off the side a little bit, that's okay. Use your finger to push it back on. You can use your scribe. And you're just gonna go around the whole thing. And again, don't worry about your edges being perfect. So I'll show you what I mean. Mine are not right now. I feel like you're gonna look at my cookies tonight and be like, I thought she did cookies regularly. Um, but yeah, I'm like, I promise I can decorate cookies. And then I'll show you. Mine are a bit sloppy right now, but I'll show you how to fix it. The one nice thing about royal icing is even though it's a little bit difficult to get your consistency right, it's very forgiving when you do make a mistake. It's really easy to pull it back into place with your scribe or your finger. So I'm just done this one. So if you're just going to be filling the whole thing in, you could stop here. If you want to have it divided, then you could keep going and you could just kind of separate. I'll show you. You could do lines across. Yeah, to kind of separate your little tree branches. So I'll show you here what I mean by that. So yeah, if you want to do it this way as well, you can do that. If you're happy with it the other way, then the next thing we're going to do is just fill in the whole thing. If you are going to do it separately, we're going to fill in two alternating. So again, cut your tip, not too big. So I'm going to do the top one and then the third one. Now, like I said, if you're doing the whole tree at once, you're going to flood the whole thing. But I'm going to break this up. Don't worry about going all the way to the edges, especially in the pointy parts. I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to show you. You can see mine's not all the way filled in. This is where your little scribe is going to come in. So you're going to use your scribe. See how close I can do with the camera to get this. But you're going to kind of use your scribe to move it all around and guide it to where you want to go. So in those little corners, if you see any bubbles, you can pop them. If you have any that's kind of off the side or any lines that are crooked, you can use this. I see I've got a little bit of space on the side. So you can do kind of little mini tiny circles like this and kind of pull it out. So I'm going to actually do that and pull mine out a little bit. You can pick up that or not. And then because we want this to dry, if we do these all at once, they're going to blend into each other. So we want to be able to see that definition like on the other cookie. So I'm just going to go and do the other one. And then we'll set this aside to dry and we'll move on to our next cookie. And then that's what it's going to look like. Now I'm going to use my brown and do the trunk. So you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to outline it here like this and then fill it in. So we'll take that. So we'll just set our green. We'll leave our green for now. I'm going to take my brown. I'll show you here. So for this one, we'll start off really tiny because it is such a small space to cover. We can always cut the tip wider when we go onto our gingerbread man. But for this tiny little tree trunk, I'll show you what we're going to do here. So you don't have to always outline. When I started out, I didn't always do two consistencies. However, it is nice to have, it's nice to do because it kind of gives you like a little border. You almost kind of make a little dam so that your icing can't flood over. But you don't have to if you're just starting out and you really can't be bothered to be making two consistencies and you just want to practice. You can totally get away with doing it. But I just wanted to show you both so that you could see. So this is what we're left with. And we're going to stop here because we're going to move on to our next cookie while these pieces dry.
Looks so good already. And it's so glossy at the top. It's awesome.
There, so we'll set that aside. Next is, I think I said the star, but we'll see here. Let's do actually, you know what? We've got our brown out. Let's do the gingerbread. All right, so again, we'll take our piping. we're just outlining, so we'll leave the same thing. We're going to do the whole outline just like we did with the tree. Actually, I might actually cut my tip a little bit bigger. Don't worry about your outline being perfect, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So sometimes you do have to stop and start. So I've got my head done here, but I'll show you when I do my arm that it kind of crosses over. And if your lines aren't perfect and they're overlapping, it doesn't matter because you're going to cover that anyway with your flood icing.
Yeah, I guess the main goal of this border part is just to keep all the flood icing in.
Yeah, and then I'll even show you what happens, like worst case, if you overflow, I'm going to purposely overflow off of this arm. We'll just say, whoops, I got carried away. And then you can use your scribe and you can just kind of pick it back up and just move it back in. Or if your hands should be clean because you would have washed them before you started painting, but you can also just go like that and just kind of whoop and pick it back up. And then just kind of, flatten out the top if it was your base, if this was your filling, just kind of tap it back down. And then if it was really, really, really too far gone, you can just scrape your whole icing up and start over again. So that's what I mean when I say like royal icing, it looks difficult at first and it's a pain at first to kind of get used to the consistency and getting that process, but it is really quite forgiving to work with when you get going. So here's our gingerbread lined in. So now we're going to take our flood and we're just going to fill it all in. And then once that's done, we're going to set it up with our Christmas tree. I'm going to move these ones that are done out of my way. No, they're fine. Yeah. If you feel like at the end when you're trying to kind of use your scribe to fill in any bubbles, if you feel like you don't have enough icing, don't hesitate to just squirt more on top. You can swirl it in and you do have some time before this dries. You have to be quick, but not that quick. So, let's see. So I'll show you. So I've got some little spaces. So again, I'm just going to use my scribe. I'm going to just fill some holes here. See one over here. Bring it to the edge. Just going to do my tiny little circles to kind of pull this out because I'd like to fill this foot out more. And this is where we're going to leave off with this. This needs to dry before we can come back to it and we'll pipe some details on top. So we'll put that up with our Christmas tree. Again, if I'm going too fast for anybody, just let me know and we'll take a pause and slow down. But next we're going to get started on our star. So what I like to do in the meantime when I have my icing so that it doesn't drip out everywhere when I'm not using it, I'll pinch the tip and kind of smush the rest of it down. And then I'll just kind of give it a twist and then I can fold it up on itself and I'll usually set it up against something like my drying rack or tub of icing, anything at all, and just to keep it from leaking out all over. So same thing, I'm just going to take the tip, push all of this down, and then just give it a twist. And then it's ready to go. I think I need to adjust my green right now. So I'm going to use our yellow. And I don't know if I mentioned with the tree, if you had sprinkles, you would put that. So if you have sprinkles, you want to put it on where your icing is still wet, because that's going to be your glue, basically, is going to keep it in place. Otherwise, we're going to use our piping consistencies and kind of pipe our little dots of color on there. So I'm going to start with my 2 knots, my toothpaste consistency of my yellow. And I can see even some of the color has already kind of started to settle. So if you see that you kind of have a little bit kind of bunching up, just massage your bag a little bit before you cut your tip. Nope. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to go all around the outline of this. So for this one, I had done two different ones. One I did with lines. The other I just did with little sprinkles that I had. So if you are doing sprinkles, once you flood this in, then you can dot your sprinkles on. If you want to do pipe lines, then once we're done, we'll set this aside and come back to it. I'm going to do the lines just so that people have a chance to practice piping, but don't feel like you have to do that. Right, so this aside. And I don't know if I mentioned, but just in between too, with your scribe, you can either with your finger, and then just kind of have your paper towel, or you can just do like this, just so you're not mixing. If you're going for like dark color to dark color, it's fine. But just in this case, if you know I had green on it and then I start working with my yellow, you're gonna see it. So again, you know, depending if you're just making the cookies for you and you don't care, that's fine. But depending how picky you are going to be. Just something to be mindful of. So again, I'm just going to fill in. So this one you'll see, I'll show you. I'm not going to go, I'll show you before I fix the holes on this one, kind of how I flood it. So I'm just going from outside in. Some people like to start at the top and fill from the top going back and forth. It's whatever works for you. So again, don't worry about getting right into those corners, because if you try to get them, you're going to overflood the side. This is where your scribe comes in, and you're just going to be able to pull them in to fill those corners and guide it in where you want. And like I said, if there's a spot where you're pulling and then it looks like you're kind of getting a little bit too thin, just squirt more icing in that area and then just swirl it in so it blends in. So I'm just going to go around now, pull all my icing, fill in my spots, fill in my blanks, little blank spaces here. And there. And so that is another one that we're going to set to dry. Candy cane. All right, so we're going to move on to our candy cane now. Let's see, I was going to say, I'll show you. Yeah, we're not gonna, I'll show wet on wet in a minute. I could always even scrape a cookie off and then just show them that one. Fun fact, if you make cookies long enough, you'll start to talk to yourself even more than usual. Because it does require planning, especially if you have a set. Usually I'm doing birthday cookies for my kids and their friends. And so you have to plan a set and you need to think ahead on what colors you want to make. So usually you are being very strategic about it. All right, so I'm going to take my piping here. I think this is my piping. I didn't do the best knot. I believe that is 2 knots in that one. What did I do here? I swear I've just had water. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing on this one that we kind of did with the Christmas tree. So there's a different technique called wet on wet that you can do. You can't really see the difference here, but the reason we let it dry is because we want our tree by leaving space in between, you can really see that dimension. So I did one of these just to show you, and didn't wait. And you can see how there's no real, I'll put them beside each other maybe. Oops, I just popped a little bauble off that tree. You can kind of see the dimension in the tree, but not in the candy cane. So for this, it's not one that you'll use, well, you might use it a ton, depending what you're doing. If you're wanting cookies with like a nice swirly background, you would use it. I'll show you really quickly and just wipe it off here. Let's do, I'm going to pipe a circle on this. Do not do this. I'm just showing you right now. You will don't do what I do. I'm just showing you an example. So say we wanted to do, let's use our green because it's open. So if I go like this, and then I take a red across like this. So it's really weird now. But if I take my scribe, so I do this one a lot on like mittens. You could also do it on Christmas ornaments. And you see if I pull up, it drags all those colors. So if you go up, wipe your scribe, down, wipe your scribe. Again, this will be in the notes in the end. Don't worry.
This is very improv, this one.
This is, yeah, we didn't plan on doing this, but I just thought, why not? It's such a fun technique. I have to show you. It's too cute. So yeah, this is a neat one if you had like say a Christmas ornament and then you did 3 stripes or 4 stripes across the middle of it. And you can see how you can kind of, well, now I've made a mess of it. It's all, that didn't work. It's pouring down, but I will show you a picture of some that I've made before. Trust me, guys.
As soon as I say, not a thing.
Yeah, trust me, guys. I will show you a picture of what I mean. I did a pair of mittens with this technique and they turned out really cute. So yeah, this is also what I mean too. If you do have a mishap with your icing, you can just start over again. Marley, I'm sorry about your canters. All right, so back to what I was going to show you. Let's do our candy cane. So we're going to outline it and then I'll show you here in a minute. We're going to do just like the Christmas tree, basically outline it and then we'll fill in our inside lines. Again, tedious going around. But he's so quiet. I'm focusing. Is everyone doing okay? Does anyone need me to slow down or anything? And so here's a good example. If your line breaks by accident, you can just go back in and connect it. You can kind of see right here where it dropped. That's totally fine. Don't panic if that happens. Just go back in, connect them, use your scribe to clean it up a little bit on the edge there. And then no one will be none the wiser. So we've got that. So I'm just going to do my lines and I'll show you again. I'm just going to pipe my little candy cane lines, just like the Christmas tree. And again, if there is anything that's not clear or that I'm not showing you well enough on this, don't hesitate to even shoot me an email with any questions. There's nothing I would love more than opening my email to cookie or travel questions or anything. I'm going to pop one in here, I think. So I've done my little lines. So like this. So we're just going to alternate. I'm just going to fill in the red for now. I'm not going to do the white yet. So I'll show you in a minute what that looks like. But for now, we can put our red off to the side. I'm just going to get my thread. And I'm going to start and just do every other one red here. I'm going to go kind of 2 at a time and then do with my scribe. And yeah, same as all the other ones, we're just tidying into our corners. Okay, so this one will be ready to dry. Once this one's dry, we'll just do the same and fill in with our white. So that's where we're at for that. So we're gonna head back to our Christmas tree now because this one should be ready to add. So it's not gonna be ready to touch. You don't want to stack anything on it or touch it because it will crack, but we're gonna fill in our Christmas tree now.
You can kind of see it's less glossy, I guess. It's still like
Yeah,
nice
it'll
and
get
smooth,
like,
but
it'll turn more matte as you
as it dries.
go through here. Ideally, you would wait a half hour in between, so we're kind of rushing it a bit, but I don't want to keep you guys here all night. So this is again what I mean about how it can often be a well, often it always is a multi-step process. Usually if I'm doing my icing, I'll make up my icing and then do my base layers that evening or my first layer. And then the next day I'll do the piping on top um, or things like that. So that's why. So ideally, these ones might not have as much time to set, but hopefully we're going to give it a go. Now, once you have that done, you can set it aside again and we'll move on to the next one. I think it's our gingerbread is who we do next. Yeah.
Also, I have to say that green on the Christmas tree is looking lovely now that it's on there.
Now that it's starting to set.
Yeah.
So this is a good example because it happened anyway, not on the spot that I showed you, but so I have some spillage. So you'll see sometimes you'll think you got it, but you'll look and there was a spill. So if that happens, now when your icing's already kind of dry, you do have to be careful because if I shift this too much, this top thin layer that's dried is going to crack. So I might just gently kind of break off the side and then pull down with it. And then just do that way. And if you have a little bit of a spill down the side, no one's going to really say anything about it. And we're just kind of pulling the side, tidying that up. Okay, so again, we would give this more time to be a little bit more hard before we pipe on it. So if you pipe on it too soon, sometimes your color can kind of get absorbed. So see on this one, your icing is going to be nice on top. But if this one, it might sink in a little bit just because it's not completely dry. But again, I don't want to keep you guys here until 10 o'clock at night. So we're going to have to kind of wing it a little bit, but that's okay. So for this, we're going to do our piping white one. So we're going to use the piping and we're going to do our squiggly lines on our gingerbread man. I will start and show you. We're going to do the gingerbread lines, little squiggly lines on his head and on his limbs. So you're just trying to do your up and down. You'll notice you have to do an exaggerated up and down, just because if you try and go too quickly with a swirl, you'll just kind of end up with a wavy line. So you'll really have to like make it dramatic to kind of see the difference. And then you can kind of just take the side and kind of use your scribe to smooth out the side. So if you have kind of your sticky line or your squiggly line kind of sticking up, you can kind of just go like that and push it down a little bit on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to the limbs as well. Again, just cleaning up the sides as you go. Okay, so after that, so normally I use black, but for today we're gonna use whatever color eyes you want your gingerbread to have. I'm gonna use blue. We're gonna use our piping. Same thing, we're just gonna do a small tip. And then we're just gonna put two little dots, however big you want your eyes to be. I'll show you. If you want to be really, you can leave your eyes just whatever color. I'm scared to tip this down after that other one. So there's the eyes. If you really want to be fancy, you can take your white piping and pop a dot in there as well to kind of give it a little pupil, and then just take your little scribe and kind of push it and kind of swirl it in a little bit. And then I'm just going to use, now I'm going to use my red and we'll pipe a smile on there. This is my flood, isn't it? And then next after that, and I'll show you again, and again, just tell me to slow down if I'm going too quickly. Whatever color you want, pick a piping bag and you can do your buttons. So I will do, I think maybe I did green last time. Let's do a yellow one.
Every time I see the buttons, it just reminds me of Shrek when
Yeah,
buttons.
I know the gingerbread. I have
Yeah.
another cutter. I have a custom one that was made by the one in Scotland that I was telling you guys about earlier. And it is just the cutest little gingerbread cutter, and it's got this big, massive bubble head on it, and it reminds me of the Shrek one. It's there. So here's where we're at now. So this one is done.
It's so cute.
So our Christmas tree, we're gonna let go a little bit because we just did. So next we'll move on to our star. So with the star, if you didn't want to do sprinkles and you were doing the lines, so one thing that I'm gonna do, I used white and the yellow last time. I think I will do the same again. And so I'm just gonna kind of start in the middle and just do, um, I'll show you when I'm done. You won't really be able to see, but kind of follow, like you can use your kind of points to guide you and just kind of, I think I'm going to do a smaller set of lines in the gold, and then I'll take a white and do the bigger one. So I'll show you on the one that's done. Um, my first one was a bit crooked, but so we're going to kind of do, I'm going to attempt a neater one this time. And so again, use your piping for this, because if you do your flood, you'll still have the line, but it's not going to be like a nice sharp line. It's going to be kind of blended in. So let's see. Let's go this way to this way.
Now, I know you're focusing, Melissa. You did mention gold. Say you wanted to make gold.
Yes. So you can get a gold color, and then I get the gold color because I think you could make this darker, but it would still, I think, just turn into like a lemon yellow, they call it. But I have gold and I like that one for it. I think you could also put, I've made
Like
beige.
mustard dust? Is it
Yeah,
on
and you
top?
can get edible glitter as
Edible
well.
glitter.
You can also do, so this one's not completely dry, so you can see it's kind of starting to blend in a little bit, but that's okay for tonight. You guys will know that when you're doing it on your own to leave it longer.
Let
So
it
I'm
dry.
going to start with this, and then, whoops, I tilted my cookie, and so you can kind of see a little bit, but that's okay. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so I've done beige before using yellow and a smidge, like a tiny smidge of brown. So I think you could also maybe do a smidge of brown and use more yellow.
Right.
But gold is one of the colors that I do have because
Yeah.
it is just
Hard to make.
easier. Yeah. This will wash off, don't worry. So my lines are kind of smudging in. And yeah, I wish we did have a longer time, but I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to keep you guys until 10 o'clock. So that's why we're just kind of going along. But yes, typically this would be a multi-day process so that,
So you'd let the flood dry overnight
yeah,
and then the next day come in and do the kind of decorations.
yeah. Minimum like an hour in between. So if
Right.
I'm doing it in the evening and the kids are in bed, oftentimes I'll do one and then I'll go watch Netflix and like pick an episode of a show, go watch something and then come back to it. I've done one here, but now I need to do one here to balance it out. I don't do stars very often, and there's a reason why. I usually will opt for presents and literally every other design, but the kit came with a star, so we're doing a star.
It looks nice. And I kind of like that. So now the white will kind of sink in a little bit too. It's like almost the wet on wet look.
Yeah.
But not quite. I like it.
So we'll see here. The green is still not ready yet. How are we doing for time? Oh yeah, we are going quite a bit. So the same thing is going to happen with the green, but that's okay because again, we need to start wrapping this up for you guys. So whatever colors you like for your piping, you're going to pipe little dots just like you did with your gingerbread eyes. You're just going to pipe little colors and that will be your baubles on your Christmas tree. So I'm do some white. And I'm so sorry. I'm not watching the time doing this, so and Marley is too polite to tell me to kick it into high gear. It is really, I love making cookies, but it is a very long hobby. Like it is time consuming. So you really have to love it, but I'm gonna kind of rush these now because I'm like, oh my
You're all
goodness,
right.
people have to work in the morning.
You're all right.
Maybe it's just me that's a granny. I'm like, it's almost bedtime for me too. Let's see, let's throw some red on there. Why not? Oops, sorry, I did one.
That's a trend now with the Christmas trees, the giant baubles.
There you go. I started that.
Did you? Yeah. Right here, right now.
Right here in this kitchen. Yeah, there you go. There's one. And then same as so this is gonna end up being wet on wet too, a little bit, but that's okay. We're gonna do the same thing as the Christmas tree. We're just gonna fill in these blanks. I might just be working by myself. There might not be anybody left in here. They're like, no, we checked it half an hour ago. Poor Bennett's past his bedtime.
Think of the skills.
Yes, and I will send you guys some videos and all of my favorite people to follow. All right, so I've got these all in. So this is,
At least she's still here.
so you can see these ones aren't completely filled in. I'm going to use my scribe and pull those corners in.
And one thing I was wondering, Melissa, how this is going to be so when we were doing the tree,
Yeah.
would the tree have been too dry to start putting sprinkles on? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, so if we did that, then the surface would crack.
Yes, so
Okay.
that was one. So when I was at the start, I just kind of said, if you're doing sprinkles, do it now because
Like right away.
yeah, so that would be or like yeah, if you wanted to do sprinkles on the white part of your candy cane,
Yeah.
do it right as soon as you
Okay.
flood because that's gonna dry and be your glue.
Right. I guess it makes almost like a film on top, and then as soon as you push that in, it'll be a bit cracked.
Yeah. Now that said, if you did change your mind and wanted to add sprinkles, you can also royal icing is a great glue.
Okay.
So you could even like I've got some in case I wanted to use it.
Like I was wondering about a star on top of the tree, for example, like once you put your
Yeah.
baubles on, if you wanted to glue a star on top.
Yeah, so you can take like a bit of your icing and then just kind of dab it onto
Okay.
your sprinkle.
Cool.
So it's gonna be, you bet.
Feel like you almost need like tweezers
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, and you can buy tweezers to do this. I don't own them, but I've seen people there, so I'm just gonna stick to them. But yeah, you could easily just, if you think of it after the fact,
Yeah.
you can just use it a little bit. And people will do like royal icing transfers where they'll like
Mm.
do some on like a wax paper and then want to add it on, and you
Right.
just kind of flip it over, put a little bit of a glue royal icing, and then it'll stick
Top
on.
on top.
But that's it. You guys are done unless there's any questions. And I'm so sorry that I've kept you so late. I just get so excited about cookies. I could be here all night.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. And I think, yeah, it is very therapeutic. I agree. Even I'm just sitting here watching right now. I haven't been picked up of anything. But yeah, no, it is very therapeutic.
It is. If you can persevere through the boring part of like just doing the icing.
Yeah. This part's the fun
This
part.
part, yeah, when you get to sit down and be creative, this is where it's really fun.
Yeah. So I think I'll just pass it over to our community service manager, Eric, for a moment.
Thank you, Marley and Melissa. I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to attend. It's wonderful that we get to do this quarterly with PSP and Nikki. So we hope everyone enjoyed themselves tonight. But I really wanted to come on and make sure that we gave Melissa an overdue round of applause. Those of you who are on the call may not be aware, but she's actually a nurse by trade. And obviously you can tell that she has a wonderful passion for baking. So we're very fortunate and blessed to have her volunteer to help out tonight. And that also means that those across Europe are going to benefit from this because of the recording. So Melissa, there's going to be people all across Europe during the holidays that are making wonderful cookies thanks to you. And also just wanted to mention that if any of you have any passions that you want to share or would like to take advantage of doing something like this and share your knowledge, please don't hesitate to reach out to us because we'd love to make that happen. So thank you again, Nikki, Marley, and Melissa, and we hope everyone had a great night.
Yeah. And any ideas? Yeah, anything else you want us to do? We've done our last one was a charcuterie board workshop, and this one was the cookies. So yeah, if there's anything you guys want us to do, or even if we don't know how to do it and you just want to laugh at